Hey, great to have you with us. Episode 100, I interviewed my wife. Episode 200, I interviewed my daughters. And today, well into the 300s, we're going to sit down together, all four of us, and talk about faith, talk about family, talk about our move to Texas, and a lot of insightful things I picked up from my kids during this interview. So I don't know if you have kids or not. I think you're going to get something out of this. If you're a pastor who has ever contemplated a move or are thinking about moving, wondering what's the best age to do this for your kids, we're going to talk about that. If you're just trying to figure out what you can learn from God during a season of transition, we're going to talk about that as well. And if you've ever wondered, where's the best place to eat in Texas versus California? Hey, we get into that as well. Well, this is my conversation with my family on Simple Faith. Hey, everybody. Before we jump into the podcast, I want to let you know about something we're very excited about, and that is a brand new book we have coming out called Friend of God, Letting Jesus Say Who You Really Are. I'm excited about this for a variety of reasons, but one is because I wrote it so guys could read it. Here's what I mean by that. They're short chapters. Most guys never read another book after they get out of high school. This one's filled with 40 short chapters that you can knock out in 40 days. Read this as a family, read this by yourself, give it to someone in your life, and you can pick this up on Amazon right now, pre-ordering it, and it releases on May 21st. And then we'll have companion studies for you on the podcast starting the last part of May. So keep an ear out for that and an eye out for that as well. Looking forward to have you read Friend of God, Letting Jesus Say Who You Really Are. Hey, welcome to Simple Faith. My name is Rusty George, and I'm joined by my lovely family today. It has been a long morning serving at the Crossroads Christian Church Easter picnic, which was a lot of fun. Thousands of people out there, many kids looking for eggs. And it was our first Easter here, and I'm joined with my family, all of whom have been on the podcast before. My wife, Lori, she and I did episode 100. And then the girls, Lindsay and Sydney, they did episode 200. So girls, why don't you introduce yourselves for those listening only in the car or on podcasts, and tell maybe your age, or if you don't want to do the age, grade in school.
I'm Lindsay. I'm a junior in college, so I'm 21.
Okay.
I'm Sydney. I'm a freshman in college, and I'm 19.
Okay. And Lori?
My name is Lori.
You don't have to give your age.
Okay. And I'm their mom. And
yes.
wife.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So girls, we've recently, and I say girls, all three of you, recently moved to Texas from California. And the number one question everybody's been asking me and you, Lori, and I'm sure you girls get it too, is, hey, what's it like being in Texas now instead of California? So I would love to know, just what are the three things from California you miss the most? And you can't say the mountains, the beach,
The weather.
or the weather. Let's just say it that way. Okay? So, Sydney, we'll start with you.
Okay. I think initially moving here from California to Texas, there's a lot of culture shock in just like the environment, people, all different aspects. So I definitely miss, this is hard not saying the beach. I would say In-N-Out, and I know we have In-N-Out in Texas, but it's very different. It just tastes different. I don't know. It's different. It's better in California.
There will be a taste challenge.
There will be. There should be.
Yes.
But that's where it originated. So
Okay.
that's one
fair.
thing I really miss.
Lindsay, why don't you go next while she's thinking of another one?
Well, honestly, the drivers, though it was a lot more crowded, everybody was a lot nicer, and they always let you over. Where here, no, never.
And you said that they tailgate a lot out here.
Yeah. They're like right up behind you all the time. We're in California, you turn on your blinker and they slow down, let you over.
Really?
They are a lot nicer in California.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, you can't speak for the whole state. So, do you just mean Santa Clarita Valley?
No, like even in LA.
Yeah,
Driving down
like
there.
driving on the 5, I think there's a lot of nicer drivers.
Okay.
Yeah.
I miss saying the word "the" in front of every highway.
The
Yeah.
5,
Yeah.
405.
It doesn't
mean
go over
freeway?
well out here. Yeah, the freeway.
Yeah.
What'd you say, Lori? Something you missed from California?
Oh, yeah. Oh, you threw me off. I thought this was just for the girls.
Nope, you're up too.
Okay. I am going to say, okay, the state or.
It's an open-ended question. Yes.
Okay. Well, then just the obvious of the friendships that
Yeah.
It's harder to stay close to people when they are in another state.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it obviously is a big transition, especially for you and I, because when we moved to California, we only had one child. She was 9 months old. So it was just you and I, and we were 32, 31. So doing that in our 50s, now being empty nesters, it's a lot more challenging, don't you think?
Right. Yeah. And I think we might be a little less interested
Yeah.
as well.
Interested in what?
Oh, in starting over with friendships.
That's true. It's easier for just us to sit at home, watch TV, and
Yep,
eat dinner on the
absolutely.
couch. Yes. And yes, girls, we do watch Wheel of Fortune once in a while.
We figured.
Price is right.
And the price is right.
It went downhill fast.
Yeah,
dinner.
it really did. It really did. Okay, so Texas, obviously, now you guys are familiar with the Midwest. Texas is different, though, because even though we went back to Missouri a lot because of family, and Mom and I grew up in Kansas and Missouri, Texas is different. So the Midwest is a bit of a shock, and you guys have experienced that already in Missouri. In fact, Sid, tell everybody about your interaction with somebody where they bought their dress, and that was a big culture shock for you.
Yeah. So I was in class one day at Ozark Christian College, where Lindsay and I both go. And one of the girls in my class, somebody said to her, "I like your dress. Like, it's really cute." And she said, "Oh, thank you so much. I got it at Cracker Barrel." And I was just absolutely floored because I've only been to Cracker Barrel probably like 6 times.
Always when we were traveling.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I just,
You didn't want to shop there?
no. Oh man, it was rough. So just to hear that was just like the most shocking thing ever. I don't know. It was like almost disturbing.
Yes.
And
No.
now you're shopping there.
Okay, no, I've never shopped there. Let me just make that very clear.
You got your Randy Travis CD
Oh man,
singing the hymns.
that's terrible.
Now, Linz, you always fancied yourself as, even though you grew up in California, you were born in Kentucky. And so you felt like you had a little bit of country roots. You had to explain Chris Stapleton to some kids in class one day. So do you feel like you're a little bit more acclimated?
No, not at all. It's very
Do you feel
different.
like you're at home?
No. It's different living here than just visiting.
Okay.
You're fully involved in all of it.
Okay. So what are some things, and this is for all three of you, that you've enjoyed about Texas that you think, oh, well, that's pretty cool. We didn't have that before.
Yeah, I can go first. As far as the area that we are in, I feel like we have a lot more variety in places we can shop. Where before in our smaller town, or I shouldn't even say smaller town, smaller area.
Yeah, the valley we lived in.
The valley we lived in. Yeah, there just weren't a lot of places we could go unless we went to LA.
Yeah, because of the way that it's laid out here, you're not landlocked at all. It's just the great wide open. And in California, it was pretty much the valley that you were in, and even just the church itself. We only had a few acres. We had 6 functional acres, 11 total. 5 were on fault line, and then out here we have 140. So it's a big difference, when it comes to space, and everything's bigger in Texas. So, hey, let me interrupt for just a moment. Did you know we have a YouTube channel? In fact, all of our podcasts are now recorded and placed on YouTube as well. So ever wanted to look at the person I'm talking to? Now you can. Go to Pastor Rusty George on YouTube and subscribe. All right, back to our show. What have you girls noticed?
I mean, I feel like we're a lot closer, like you said, to a lot of different things. Like, we're really close to where Lindsay and I go to school. We can drive to a lot more places. All the states seem to be, like, closer together in a sense. I mean, I know that doesn't sound like it makes sense, but...
Yeah, the states
Like-
you would visit.
Yeah, like in California, if we wanted to get to even Nevada, it's like 5 hours. But here, if I want to get to Oklahoma, it's like 1 hour. Like the
Yeah.
other states are a lot more accessible.
That's true. And certainly one of the reasons we wanted to get closer out here was because of, your grandparents, but also for you guys to be able to drive home on the weekend and us drive up to you, which you guys did this weekend. So thank you.
Yes.
Tell us about that drive.
It's long.
It's one for the books.
It's only 6 hours.
It's 6 hours, but most of it's through just small towns in Oklahoma. So it lasts a very long time.
Yeah.
Just the random stoplights and
The speed limit going from 80 to 25 within a matter of minutes.
yeah, the cops ready for that.
Yeah, for that change. Yeah.
So this is our first Easter here in Texas. And I remember when you guys were growing up in California, we would have some exotic animals at the church because they were working animals out there in California, many of which had been in movies. We had the lion we bought a zoo, and we had a tiger one time. It was pretty interesting things, a giraffe. And a bear, yes. Oh, my. So, I mean, the animals here are a little bit different. I mean, what did we see today?
We saw an anteater,
Yes.
a lemur.
a lemur.
An armadillo.
It
Oh,
was,
an armadillo.
It was
Yeah.
just different because people own them.
Right.
It's not like, oh, they were hired out for a movie. It's like,
It was
no,
somebody's
this
house
is
pet.
this is somebody's pet. I was like, why?
We saw a longhorn.
Oh, an alligator.
Yes. Yeah. With
Yeah.
his mouth tied shut.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's just taped.
Taped.
Yeah.
I don't think they would have allowed that in California. I think
No.
PETA would have been
PETA
all
would
over
have shut
that.
that down.
All over
Yeah,
that.
definitely.
Oh, in Florida, they had them taped.
Yeah, but
that's
that was
Florida.
like a-
Yeah.
It's
A
Florida's Midwest
conservation
beach.
place.
Interesting. Okay.
That's true. Okay, so I think this is would be appropriate for our listeners, a lot of whom are pastors. Pastors move, and it's it's difficult. But what would you say to pastors that move, like when their kids get into college? Because we moved after you all had graduated from high school. So from our perspective, it was like, hey, this is great because you guys have moved. Now we'll move. It will be easy on them because they've already said goodbye, but you have told us just the opposite of that. So what should other pastors know, and what would you tell us about the move?
I think it probably would have been easier if we had moved when we were still in school because we would have had time to make connections where you are, like where we are now. So that way when we came home from college, we'd have a sense of like familiarity because
Yeah.
instead it's like we're not fully, like freshman year, not fully comfortable at school, and then you don't have a home you feel fully comfortable in either. It's like both places are new and you don't have a place to just be.
I understand that.
Yeah. And it was super weird for me because you had always said, like, we won't move until you graduate high school because I'm the youngest, which I really appreciated. And, I mean, I loved being able to graduate in California, spend my last summer there before going to college. And Lindsay had time to acclimate being at school and coming home to California the first 2 years that she was in college. But then after we moved, it was just like the weirdest experience, and it still kind of is, to say, oh, I'm going home, but it feels like I'm actually leaving home to go visit my parents, which I'm really thankful to get to come see you guys more often because of where you live now, but it doesn't feel like I'm going home because I don't know anybody here really. I don't have time to get to know people.
Yeah.
And so it's just really difficult. And I almost wish that we had moved when Lindsay and I were still in high school, which it would have been very hard in the moment, but then we would have been able to come back and be like, oh, this is a home. Like, we have roots here. And like another aspect of that is when people say, oh, where are you from? I have to say, okay, I'm from California. My parents don't live there anymore, and it's kind of complicated because I don't want to say I'm from Texas because I'd never actually lived in Texas. And so it's just a really weird, like, middle ground we have to find almost.
Yeah.
So
And
that's been difficult.
That eventually happens at any point in your
Anyways.
life.
Right.
So you don't have an ideal age if you're giving advice to others. Just maybe junior high or high school, you feel like might have been better.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, it would have been awful in the moment, but we'd be forced to make friends. So that
Right.
would have helped later.
Maybe before high school, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Okay,
interesting.
It is.
Yeah.
Lori, what have you noticed just in the move itself? It kind of took a while. There was a process of us saying goodbye and saying hello and making the move and all of that. What have you learned? What would you say to pastors' wives out there? What have you kind of gleaned from this time that maybe you would do differently or do the same?
It's a lot of questions in that. Let's see. As far as what I have learned, obviously the longer you're married, the more items you gather. So a lot more stuff, I think, right? When you agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, just through the years, take pictures of things you love and then get rid of them.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know if there's a good answer for that. I would say also, in California, we had a small circle of trust with friendships. So just don't be hard on yourself. It takes time. That's what I keep telling myself, that it's okay that I don't know a lot of people and that I don't know who those core friends are going to be. Just pray about it and make friends.
Right. Yeah, it's, you and I are in a unique situation because we're both introverts. And so it doesn't come natural for us just to be the life of the party and meet new people and all of that. So we have both had to kind of force ourselves in that a little bit, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so let's give our listeners a little bit of insight into what God's been doing in our lives. Because this has been a lot of change. So what do you think, even though, girls, you didn't have to move, you just started going home to a different place, what's God done in your heart? Or what have you learned about God through this process, or even what church means to you now that we have a different church? What have you learned?
I think for me personally, there was just a huge emphasis on God's faithfulness. And this was in so many different areas of trying to get adjusted to being at college, trying to get adjusted to going home somewhere else and making new friends and losing friends, and just so much change, which I know Lindsay and I aren't the best with change. And so I feel like God just kept revealing over and over his faithfulness to us. So many different times of him providing people, him providing opportunities, and prayers from years ago that were starting to be answered. And even though it was just the season of the most change and a lot of confusion, and almost sometimes where it felt like I would struggle to see hope for what was coming or what God was doing, he just made it so evident that he was working, and his faithfulness in the church and in Crossroads, and especially seeing what he's doing in your guys' life as our parents has been incredible. Because though one season of our lives that was 20 plus years spent at Real Life was coming to a close, the opportunity and faithfulness that God showed in bringing you guys here has been super evident as well. And that's something that I'm really glad the Lord was faithful to show me, was that, okay, I might feel one way about moving, but God is doing a lot through you guys being here. And it really is just an answered prayer for, I'm sure, so many people at the church, but also just for you guys as well, to be able to be closer to family. So with all that to say, I think God's faithfulness is something that he just keeps revealing to me over and over, on days when it feels like I'm struggling to see that, or times when it's just really difficult to see that there's hope. I just see God's faithfulness. And so therefore I will continue to hope, because it won't end.
That's great, Sid.
Yeah, and that's cool for us to hear. Do you guys remember we'd say a lot, even to ourselves, it's not about you.
Yeah.
Or it's not about us. It's about what God wants. So, it makes us proud to hear that you see that, even though that's been hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What'd you say, Lynn?
I think he's just been reminding me that like while I'm familiar with like Sid and I's form of this grief, like moving from California to Texas, there's a whole nother side for you guys that I also need to be aware of and sympathetic of, and like asking you questions about how you're doing, because that is just as important as paying attention to my own grief, but also being, as I get older, friends with you and seeing what that looks like and how God is working in your life through this, not just what's he going to do with my own sadness.
Thank you, Linz.
Yeah, that's good. I think we can all say that.
Yeah, and to add to what Lindsay was saying, it's really cool to see that God is doing something new in you guys, even though one season's coming to an end of Lindsay and I living at home and being with you guys all the time, to this new season of you guys moved, we are in college and have changed a lot. And it's really cool just to see that God is still working and like he's doing something new in both of you. And that even though you're empty nesters, or it seems like the season of life of like prime is over, it's actually not. And like you're walking into a new season where God is doing so much. So I agree with Lindsay on that.
Yeah. I think, personally for me, it has been really refreshing to see how big God is, in that I felt a lot of guilt in leaving real life, and to see how great they're doing actually brings me a lot of joy, just because I just see that they're crushing it, and people are coming to Christ, and they'll baptize hundreds on Easter, and at the time that we air this, they'll have a new lead pastor who I know and will be great, and I'm just really happy for them. And it reminds me that it's not about me, as you said, and God uses us at certain places and times, and then moves the chess pieces and uses somebody else, and we're just honored to play a small part in what he's doing. So, yeah, that's a lot.
Yes, and just to reiterate the question, it is what God's doing in us in the last 6 months.
Yes.
Okay, just making sure I'm answering that correctly. For such a long time, over 30 years, we prayed for, I take that back, a little less than 30 years. We prayed for God to give us a heart for California. We found out we were moving there.
Yeah.
And I mean, we still, have that heart for California and still pray for real life and those people and our friends. But most recently, in the past 6 months since moving here, it's God, give me a heart for your people, no matter where I am, and to love where I am.
Yeah. And it's been really easy for us to kind of start that process, because the people here at Crossroads have been so kind and loving and nice. I've been overwhelmed with just their generosity and goodness. And
yeah,
this
definitely
has a church of a long history of kindness and goodness, and to be a part of that amazing legacy. I mean, you and I have been able to meet the matriarch of Crossroads, Dottie, who she and her husband started the church in their living room, 55 years ago. And now to see it where it is, and it's just really cool to be a part of that legacy. So we're honored by that. Well, girls, I know that you did not want to do this at all, but thankful for you. Not only sharing with our listeners, but also being along for the ride and being so great. And there have been highs and lows, but at the end of the day, In-N-Out Burger makes up for a multitude of difficulties, doesn't it?
Yes, but not here.
Yes. California In-N-Out.
California In-N-Out.
Good luck with that.
Yes. All right.
We'll be back.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I did. It went a direction I did not think. I learned a lot of things, mainly the ways I could have done things differently. But I just love my kids and my wife, and they're such a blessing to me. Hey, next week we'll be back, and I'm going to sit down with a pastor friend of mine who is yet to be on the podcast, but I'm glad we saved it for this, because I have a lot of pastors emailing me and texting me and asking me, hey, how are you going to handle the election cycle this year? How are you going to deal with the voting issue that a lot of us have. And our congregants are wondering, how should we vote? How do we talk about voting? How do we keep this from being so divisive as it was 4 years ago? I'm going to sit down with a rock star pastor by the name of Ben Kacharis and ask him how he's going to navigate that with his church community. So make sure you join us next week. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, make sure you do that. And if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure you do that as well, so you can see all of these besides just listening. Well, thanks very much for joining us. We'll be back next week, brand new content with Ben Kacharis. Until then, keep it simple.